Have you ever started a book only to close it midway through because of glaring mistakes in research? Or have you considered walking out of a movie because of multiple errors? I know I have. I'm Linda Shenton Matchett, author of Love's Harvest, and I'm going to share a bit about what I did to ensure my book's accuracy. The best research is conducted on location in person, but intensive, innovative, and effective research can be done right from your chair. When I was a child doing school reports, the typical mode of research was the good old encyclopedia, with Encyclopedia Britannica being the premier edition. With the advent of the internet, those days are long gone. Not everything found on the internet is true, but what the internet can do for you is to give you access to sources all over the world. It can also give you real-time information through webcams and other sources. Love's Harvest is a modern retelling of the biblical Book of Ruth set in Russia, Germany, and England between 1920 and 1943. The story contains several topics that required research. A Russian famine that occurred in the Volga region during the 1920s, the effect of mustard gas on soldiers during World War I, the British home front during World War II, the Women's Land Army, and British mannerisms and colloquialisms. In every case, a researcher prefers to use primary sources such as interviews, oral histories, diaries, memoirs, and other documents. I hit pay dirt when investigating each of the topics listed above. With regard to the famine, I was able to find diaries, journals, letters, and records by or to people who lived in the United States and had relatives in the Volga region during the event. As a result of the letters from their Russian family members, relief societies were formed in many of the states where Volga Germans had settled. The Nebraska and Oregon historical societies each had a wealth of information. For example, this is the translation of a letter from Peter Mueller to his family in Portland, Oregon. With regard to the effects of mustard gas on soldiers, I used two sources. The first was my great-aunt, who was married to a man who served as an Army private during World War I. Uncle Norman was gassed during one of the battles, and then was discharged home to a sanatorium where he spent the remaining few years he had left. When I was a young teen, my aunt shared with me about Uncle Norman's experiences in the war. The second source I used was the medical community. I was able to find numerous medical journals and publications that discussed mustard gas and the terrible effects it had on its victims. Thanks to the popularity of World War II, there are thousands of memoirs, autobiographies, and compilations, such as Norman Longate's How We Then Lived. Many universities, museums, and historical societies have or are conducting oral history projects, many of which are posted on websites or YouTube. I also live near the Wright Museum of World War II, and as a member, I have access to their archives of letters and diaries. All of these sources gave me information about the British home front, the Land Army, and the cadence of the British way of speaking. In the name of research, I watched hours of interviews and oral histories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. As my greatest supporter, my husband secured a World War II map of London and bus and tube maps and schedules for the war years. These items have ensured that my characters didn't get on the wrong tube stop or turn the wrong direction when leaving somewhere. As I mentioned earlier, in-person, on-location research is the ultimate way to go. I was blessed to be able to visit England in March of 2015. In a whirlwind 10-day trip of London and Hastings, in addition to visiting many of the places where my story's characters have been and taking hundreds of pictures, I had the experience of being a stranger in a strange land. I had to learn how to navigate the public transportation system, understand the monetary system, and communicate with people who speak a different version of English than I do. This gave me the ability to write an accurate portrayal of Noreen and Rosa Hirsch, who both traveled to a foreign land. I hope that when you read Love's Harvest, you'll appreciate the accuracy presented throughout the story.